Imagine if you, in your 20s or 30s or whatever, had been given that kind of a gift. Think about your own goals that you're trying to achieve in your financial life, whether it's for your career, or you want to get some real estate income started, or you want to open a business, or whatever you want to do. How much better and how much easier and safer could you pursue those dreams you have if someone had been able to leave you a gift, a tax-free gift and a flexible gift? When we think about which retirement account we want to choose and why and what we're saving up for retirement, we might consider big topics like taxes, pre-tax versus post-tax, whether we're trying to retire early or whether we're just trying to supplement our income in retirement, But one thing that a lot of people never give a second thought to is what would happen to your retirement if you passed away. What happens to your money? Is it taxed? Is it not taxed? Which of your retirement options are best for that? That's something we're going to tackle today. In my opinion, there's one option that is superior above all others, and I want to tell you why and explain how they all work to give you a general idea in case you have some of the other retirement options. Just real quickly, an IRA is an individual retirement account, meaning it's one that you manage yourself. It's not through your work. You pick what goes in it, and you can only put in so much money every year that the government decides every year how much they're going to allow you to put in. It is tax advantage. You can do pre-tax or post-tax, which is known as traditional pre-tax. Roth is post-tax. It's good because it lets you have little to no fees and kind of control your own destiny and your own investing options. The other term that we're going to talk about a lot today is RMD, or required minimum distributions. So if you remember from our retirement video, distributions is the money that you're getting paid when you're taking money out of your retirement account once you actually do retire. Those are called distributions. You every month or every whatever, 2 weeks, whatever, you get your check or your distributions out of your account. Most retirement accounts require you to start taking money out of your retirement account once you reach a certain age. A Roth IRA has no required minimum distributions. A traditional IRA and a 401k requires you to start taking them at age 72. And these are very important for today's topic because when we talk about death transfers, there's two main factors: RMDs and taxes. So let's say you watching this, you pass away, and your retirement account is going to get left to whoever you leave it to in your will. That person is known as the beneficiary. It makes a big difference whether that person is your spouse or not, because spouses get special treatment that other people don't. If you are a non-spouse and you are a beneficiary of a Roth IRA, your first option you have is you can open what's known as an inherited IRA. So you open that up in your name and you'll start taking required minimum distributions no later than December 31st of the year after the original owner passes away. The IRA has to be completely distributed. All the money has to be gone within 10 years of the owner dying. There is no early withdrawal penalty when you are a beneficiary. You inherit an IRA and you take money out. So we're not going to need to worry about that early penalty in any of today's topics with the death transfer. And while you're taking that money out, your assets get to keep, growing tax-free. But they're only going to get to keep growing tax-free during that 10-year period if you, remember, you're dead now, but if you, the viewer who's now dead, if you had started that IRA 5 years before passing. There's a thing that we're going to talk about a lot today. It's known as the 5-year rule. And essentially what it is that there are a lot of taxes and limits that will kick in the first 5 years of you starting your IRA. And if you break the 5-year rule, then you have to pay, as the beneficiary, then you have to pay heavy fees. You're going to pay the 10% early penalty and you're going to pay taxes. So when my daughter inherits my IRA, she has to wait until I had started that IRA at least 5 years ago. So if I start it now at age 35 and I die when I'm 60, she doesn't have to worry about it. But if I died at, say, 37 when that IRA is only 2 years old, she has to wait 3 years before she can start taking advantage of it penalty-free. So again, the age for the 5-year rule is determined by the original owner when they started it. So what's the moral to today's story regarding the 5-year rule is start your IRA now. Don't wait. Start it now, because there are a lot of benefits to it. And quicker you get to that 5 years, the much less you have to worry about. Your second option, if you're a non-spouse and you're the beneficiary, you can do an inherited IRA in your name. And instead of doing life expectancy, you do the 5-year method. What that means is there is no requirement on when you have to start taking the required distributions out. If you recall, on the life expectancy option, they had to start on December 31st of the year after the death. On the 5-year rule, you can wait as long as you want or as quickly as you want. But within 5 years of the person dying, the entire IRA has to be withdrawn. So instead of 10 years, you only have 5 years to take all of that money out. So this could be an option for you if there are tax reasons for why you wouldn't want to start. You couldn't afford the taxes on a certain year and you needed to wait, or if you needed to take the money out right away. And just like with the first option, there's no early penalty and your assets continue to grow tax-free as long as you haven't broken the 5-year rule, as long as that IRA was 5 years old. Third option you have as a non-spouse is known as a lump sum. This is kind of the easiest one to understand. It's essentially, instead of doing an inherited IRA, you just essentially cash out the IRA that I left to my daughter. As long as the 5-year rule is met, then you get everything penalty free. Let's pause. None of this we're talking about can happen if I don't stop what I'm doing, go on my website, whoever I run my IRA through, and I don't declare who my beneficiary actually is. If you die right now in a car crash and you haven't named a beneficiary, none of this can happen, or it can happen, but it takes a lot longer. The local government is going to get to make some decisions that you don't want them to be in charge of. If you go in right now, you can designate your beneficiary so you don't ever have to worry about this. And then if you ever have another child, or you get married or divorced, you can go in and change your beneficiary on your IRA and a lot of other things in your life. Now, if you are the spouse, you have a few extra options here. You can do what's called a spousal transfer in a Roth IRA, and you transfer all of the assets to your own IRA that you already have. So my wife and I both have IRAs. If I die right now, instead of opening up a new inherited IRA, she can just transfer all of my things that are inside of my Roth IRA and put them into hers. And that's the end of it. They get treated the same as her since it's a Roth IRA to a Roth IRA. There's no tax issues to worry about. There's no conversion issues to worry about. You basically just moves it from one basket to the other. You would never be required to take required minimum distributions if you did that inside of a Roth IRA, because a Roth IRA, unlike any of the other retirement options, never requires you to take required minimum distributions. So you can then leave all that money to your next beneficiary if you wish to do so instead of taking withdrawals on it. So in addition to the spousal transfer, you can do the other options that we talked about. You can do the 5-year method, inherited Roth IRA. You can do the life expectancy method, inherited IRA. And you can, of course, do the lump sum. So we talked about the Roth IRA. So how is that any different than the traditional IRA? Well, as far as your options, it's not. You have the exact same options as far as lump sum, 5-year method, life expectancy method, spousal transfer, etc. However, you're paying taxes on all of it the whole way through. When you start taking your required minimum distributions, you have to pay taxes on that. You are responsible for it. Also, regarding required minimum distributions, you have to actually do them. So if you are a beneficiary of an IRA, you would prefer it to be a Roth and not a traditional. My daughter would prefer dear old dad be giving her a Roth IRA because she doesn't have to worry about the taxes on it now. Everything I'm leaving her is tax free. And that to me is the entire point of this video. Is if part of your retirement planning is to leave something for your children and you have other means to get by other than your Roth IRA, say you have a traditional 401k as well, or a pension or something else that you can live off, real estate income, whatever that you can live off of, You can let your Roth IRA continue to compound and build tax-free. You will never have to take required minimum distributions on your Roth IRA. And then when you pass, you can leave it to your spouse or your child or whomever. And all of that money you're giving them is tax-free. There are so few ways to achieve that in life. What a gift to be able to give someone something, even if we're not talking about the spousal advantages, even if you're talking about your children. What a gift to be able to give them something where they could choose the life expectancy method and have 10 years of all of this tax-free money that they can choose when they're like how much to be taking out and over what time period do they get to take it out, and put it in their own investing strategies. Imagine if you in your 20s or 30s or whatever had been given that kind of a gift. Think about your own goals that you're trying to achieve in your financial life, whether it's for your career, or you want to get some real estate income started, or you want to open a business, or whatever you want to do. How much better and how much easier and safer could you pursue those dreams you have if someone had been able to leave you a gift, a tax-free gift, and a flexible gift? That's kind of the key thing with the Roth IRA is flexibility and tax-free. If you pass away while you still have a 401k, what your beneficiary has as far as options can really differ wildly from plan to plan. Either way, whether you have a Roth or traditional, your beneficiary is going to have to take RMDs. Some plans may let you leave the 401k alone as the beneficiary and not take out RMDs or pay taxes if it's a Roth. Again, the rules are different one to the other, but there are a few that will let you get by without RMDs, but for the most part, they're going to make you take them. Not only that, quite a few of them, I might even say the majority of 401ks require the beneficiary to just take a lump sum payment. And when you as the beneficiary inherit that 401k, if you're forced to take a lump sum payment and it's a traditional 401k, you have to pay taxes on that. And that can be a real pain as a beneficiary if you suddenly have an unexpected tax bill from this 401k that you've been given. If you're educated on it and you're prepared, then it's okay. You can set aside the required amount. But for those who aren't well educated on this, it can be a sudden shock. If you are a spouse, you may be able to roll some 401k plans directly into your IRA. As I said, there's a lot of variance within the 401k. A few options are good. Most of them are pretty mediocre. If you want more information on the individual little rules for the 401k, there's a great website called 401khelpcenter.com, and I'll link it in the description below. I would go there and check that out and look up your specific plan if you're really trying to estate plan. Pensions, like 401ks, can also vary wildly depending on where the pension's from and what kind it is. So they typically do allow the beneficiary, especially if it's a spouse, to receive payments from the pension. It's not just lost when you die, but some of them require you to take it as a lump sum, and then some of them will let you do like an annuity style, kind of like the life expectancy method we talked about with the IRAs. And a few may even let you roll that over just into your other retirement plans if you're the beneficiary. They may let you roll it into your 401k or your IRA, but I wouldn't hold my breath. So with all the options covered, again, the Roth IRA is superior. You've got flexibility. If you are the spouse, you don't ever have to take RMDs. You can just put it in your own retirement vehicle. You can put it in your own Roth IRA. That doesn't ever require you to take RMDs. So now you've just added to your nest egg, which continues to grow and snowball bigger and bigger, never requiring you to take any money out. And you can leave it to your children or whomever. It also gives you a marriage of flexibility yet structure. It gives you flexibility because you can take RMDs when you want. You can do a spousal transfer. You can do an inherited Roth IRA. You can do lump sum. You have different options, but you know exactly what those options are going to be. With the 401k and the pension plan, it can vary from job to job. And with the Roth IRA and the traditional IRA, you know what your options are ahead of time. And then the last reason why the Roth IRA is superior when it comes to death transfers is, again, if you roll it from the original owner's Roth IRA and do your IRA, you never have to take RMDs. And Why am I making that a big stress? Because again, if you have other ways of providing for yourself, if you have a 401k or a pension in addition to your Roth IRA, which is what I personally suggest for the average American. If you want to watch the video where I talk about what retirement account is best for you, I suggest that the average person, it's probably best for you to do a traditional 401k through your job and a Roth IRA. If that's you, when you retire, you start living off of your traditional 401k first because it requires you to take distributions. So if you can live off just the money from the 401k, live off that and let the Roth keep building and snowballing tax-free, guys. And that way, if you pass away, you'll have still the entire Roth IRA, nothing taken out of it, and you can leave it tax-free to your wife or child or whomever. If retirement plans interest you and you want more information, check my videos out. I'll link them in the description below and above on which retirement account is best for you. What should you be putting inside of your 401k among your options that may be provided to you by your employer? Some upcoming videos that are related to retirement that we're going to be covering. What should you put in your IRA, be it Roth or traditional? You have a lot more flexibility in your IRA, so there's a lot more to talk about. And then we're also going to do a class specifically on building a Roth IRA dividend focused portfolio.